Hello, my name is Arthur, and in the previous video we got the enemy character so he would turn away from the spikes on the platform. Um, in doing the enemy, I actually made a mistake with his signals, and it didn't show up until after I had run, and then I noticed it down in the debugger after I'd ended my video. So we'll have a kind of look at what that mistake was. What I did was we had direction area as child of damage zone, and its name was area 2D. I changed the parentage, changed the name, and then disconnected the signal from the function that was called on area 2D body entered. So I disconnected a signal after I changed the address of that signal. And that proved to be a mistake. So I actually had to disconnect this signal, reparent to the damage zone, change the name back to area 2D, re-hook up the signal as area 2D child of damage zone signal, then disconnect the signal and go through the process, unparent it, give it its new name, and hook up this signal again to clear the error. Because it was looking for a non-existent signal that isn't even listed here. Like the signal wasn't listed here anymore, but Godot still thought it existed. So that was a procedural problem where maybe Godot should have been able to keep track of those moves of the signal, but it wasn't able to, and the way that I went about it did cause an error that had to be cleared. The other thing that I've done with enemy script is because I've put in a change direction function that does the change direction. There was two other places in the script where change direction happened, so I just changed those from being the statements in that function to making a function call, which is happens on two places here. Physics process if is on wall, change direction. That used to have the statement in there, and it used to have it in here. Just the fact that it existed in two places in the first place indicated it should have been a function, and should have been a function as it was. So I've changed those into function calls. Um, Now it's time to look at getting the player working with the platform. Yeah, it could turn out that some of the directions that I've went with the script on the player are going to turn out to be not the best idea. And this is one of them. The fact that I don't recreate the player each time he dies. That may turn into a problem where I may need to actually put the script into Game Manager and have the Game Manager deal with the player died, it disappeared and queue freed, and then is respawned in by the Game Manager deciding that it still has lives. And that would avoid some issues that I've already had to find workarounds for. So there was the issue when the character died, the player died, it respawned, and then it still had the velocity of bounce, or needed to have this reset and that reset and the other thing reset. So yeah, the difference here is that now there's going to be a hazard that's unlike any hazard that I've put into any of my previous experiments with a platformer game, which is an area that can inflict continuous damage. So this is going to play out differently than any other damage that I've ever inflicted onto a player. So it may come down to actually having to revamp script and rethink ideas that I put into the script. And that is part of this series of videos. This is not me showing you, oh, do this, do that, do the other thing, and everything's going to work out perfect. This is a series about how I've learned to develop a game and the kinds of changes that are involved in deciding to develop a game. So we'll just go forward now and we'll deal with that as it comes. So we're back on the platform here. So we have our platform with its new names and everything. And we're looking at the instance when the player enters the damage zone. So currently with the script, what we would be looking for is first it has to identify that it's the player. So if body is in group, player, and we got a typo there. And let's try saving here, because it's not calling up the auto complete for some reason. And I like it to be calling up the autocomplete. So when it's not doing that, I look for the reason why it's not doing that. And we'll just see what's going on here. I'm not sure what that one is. So if is in group player, it will be body dot take damage, and then it delivers the hit points value. And as you can see by the autocomplete there, I've already given it a variable for hit points. So I've given it 25 hit points. So 4 hits on the player. He can hit it 4 times. So now he'll be able to take damage. When the player takes damage, the next thing that happens is it calls the bounce function. So we have body dot bounce. Then it looks for a direction. And it looks for the type. So the reason that it bounced. And let's create a new reason called self. So we're going to send it a null direction because the platform doesn't know the direction. The direction's going to depend on the direction the player is pointing in. So let's look at that in terms of bounce. So on bounce, we can add in the type. What I call that, self? That one might not make sense. Let's call it spike. That might make more sense. So we'll call it spike. And we'll call it spike. And then it would set in a direction. So because direction is a local variable, it kind of leaves me in a point where I have to figure out the direction. And that's one of the things that may have been a mistake, making direction a local variable. So the way that we have to check directions is if backwards. If backwards underscore direction. Now, because it's a spike, we want it to bounce backwards. So if he's backwards, that means he would be facing in a direction that we would want a +1 value. Then we can go else. Actually, we can just go like this. We can go direction equals -1. Equals -1. And then if it's backwards, it will flip to a +1. So we'll see what happens now, and I expect there to be a problem. And let's check our debugger to see we have body is never used and body is never used. So part of that is it hasn't been saved. So if we save that, we should drop to 1 warning, and that's just this on body exited. And that's for the block, so we won't get around to that. So let's have a look at what we get from that. Now we'll just jump into that and die. So it'll take 4 hits. He jumps back from it. And then we die on top of it. And something happened. He's semi-translucent. And he's down here because it ended up adapting a bounce. Now, he's just able to jump over that. So this is where maybe the smartest thing to do on the player is to actually revamp the entire idea of the way he dies. And to have some of that occurring in Game Manager. So what we'd be looking at here is spawn and perhaps removing that, and then let's see, and then on die animation finished, perhaps this should be queue free. So let's actually look at what would be involved in that. And first we'll see how much time we have. Okay, I'm already at 14 minutes. So maybe what I'll do is I'll end this video, and in the next video we'll come back and we'll look at revamping the player script and developing it to something that's probably going to work better. So that'll be in the next video. I hope this was useful, and until the next video, take care.